You are standing in a grocery store, your cart is full, your list is almost done. And then you hear it, a cry. Not your child, not anyone you know. A baby, somewhere in the next aisle, is screaming, and something inside you shifts, your jaw tightens, your focus breaks. You cannot simply continue reading the label on a box of pasta. Something deeper than manners or empathy has taken over, something older, something you did not choose. And the real answer for why that happens is far stranger than you think. Your brain did not develop in a world of grocery stores. It developed over roughly 2 million years of human prehistory in small roaming bands of 30 to 50 people, where every infant in the group was, in a very real sense, your responsibility. Not legally, not consciously, but biologically, because in that world, a crying baby was never just someone else's problem. It was a signal that something had gone wrong, and if something had gone wrong with one member of the group, it could go wrong with all of them. Psychologist Sarah Brosnan has spent decades studying cooperative behavior in primates, and one of her core findings is that our species did not survive by being selfish. We survived by being exquisitely sensitive to the needs of others, especially the most vulnerable. A crying infant triggers what she calls an obligatory response in the human nervous system, not optional, not polite, obligatory. Your brain registers that sound and begins preparing you to act before your conscious mind has had time to form a single thought. This is not metaphor. This is measurable. Researchers at Oxford University ran a study in 2012 in which they played different sounds to adult participants while monitoring their brain activity. Crying infants produced the fastest neural response of any sound tested, including screaming adults, alarm systems, and distressed animals. The reaction time was under 100 milliseconds. To put that in perspective, a blink of your eye takes roughly 150 milliseconds. Your brain responds to a baby's cry faster than you can blink. Why so fast? Because in the ancestral environment, hesitation had consequences. A crying infant draws predators. It signals weakness in the group. It can mean illness, injury, or abandonment. Every one of those scenarios threaten not just the baby, but the entire band. So your nervous system evolved to treat that sound as a 5-alarm emergency, no matter who the baby belongs to. This is the part that most people get wrong about empathy. We tend to think of empathy as a moral choice, a decision we make to care about someone else. But for a sound like an infant's cry, the response is not a decision at all. It is a reflex arc, a loop that begins in the auditory cortex and shoots almost instantly to the amygdala, the part of your brain that processes threat and urgency. The cry of a baby activates your threat detection system. That same system that makes you flinch when something flies at your face is also what makes it impossible to ignore a screaming child at a restaurant while you are trying to have a conversation. Anthropologist Sarah Hrdy has written extensively about what she calls cooperative breeding, a system that she argues is the defining feature of human social life. In almost every other great ape species, infant care falls almost entirely on the mother. Chimpanzee mothers carry their infants constantly and rarely allow others to hold them. But in human prehistory and in hunter-gatherer societies observed today, infants are passed between multiple caregivers, aunts, older siblings, grandmothers, and unrelated adults from the very first weeks of life. Hrdy calls these additional caregivers allomothers, and she argues that the human infant evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to be irresistible to them. Think about that for a moment. The human baby may be the most successful manipulator in the history of life on Earth. Its features are not accidental: the large forehead, the wide-set eyes, the rounded cheeks, the small nose. These proportions are called the Kinchin schema, a term coined by ethologist Konrad Lorenz in 1943 to describe the cluster of infantile features that trigger caregiving behavior in adults. Lawrence demonstrated that humans respond to these features not only in human infants, but in baby animals, cartoon characters, even round faced robots. The features bypass rational thought and activate something ancient and automatic. You look at a baby face, and your brain essentially short circuits toward care, but the cry is different. The cry does not charm you, it distresses you, and that is intentional. Research published in the journal Current Biology by neuroscientist Christine Parsons found that infant cries specifically activate the dopaminergic system in adult listeners, the same reward circuitry involved in hunger, thirst, and sexual behavior. The cry creates a state of motivated urgency. You do not just hear it, you are driven to resolve it. The cry is an itch your brain desperately wants to scratch, and the only way to scratch it is to find the baby and make it stop. This is why, in a crowded room, a single crying infant can derail the attention of every adult present, regardless of parenthood, culture, or age. Studies have consistently shown that even adults who have never had children, who report low interest in infants, and who consciously consider themselves indifferent to babies, still show measurable physiological arousal in response to infant cries. Heart rate goes up, skin conductance increases, attention narrows, the body prepares to respond. You do not get to opt out. And it gets stranger still, because the cry is not a single signal, it is a language. Developmental psychologist Kathleen Wermke of the University of Würzburg has shown that newborn cries are not random noise. They are patterned, structured, and melodically shaped by the language the infant has been hearing in the womb. German babies cry with a rising melody. French babies cry with a falling one. The cry is already being shaped by the world before the infant has ever seen daylight. And adults, even those with no exposure to a particular language, can detect subtle differences in infant cries that signal hunger versus pain versus loneliness versus overstimulation. You were not taught this, you simply know it. This is one of the quieter miracles of human evolution. A creature that cannot walk, cannot speak, cannot feed itself, and cannot survive a single night alone has evolved a vocalization so precisely tuned to the adult nervous system that it becomes, in effect, a remote control for caregiving behavior. Press the button, watch the adults mobilize. For most of human history, that remote control worked inside a community. A crying baby in a band of hunter-gatherers did not fall on one set of ears, it fell on 30. And because everyone's nervous system was running the same ancient wiring, everyone responded, food was shared, babies were passed, sick infants were tended by people who had no genetic stake in their survival. This is the kind of behavior that on the surface seems to defy natural selection. Why would you spend energy and risk on someone else's offspring? The answer is kin selection, group survival, and what evolutionary biologist David Sloan Wilson calls multi-level selection. The idea that evolution does not only select for traits that benefit the individual, it also selects for traits that make groups more effective. A band of humans where everyone ignores a crying baby is a band where infants die, mothers are overwhelmed, and the group weakens. A band where everyone responds is a band that survives. Over hundreds of thousands of years, the version of the human brain that could not ignore a crying baby won. You are descended from the ones who could not look away. And so today, in a world of strangers and supermarkets and restaurant booths with paper menus, you carry that ancient circuitry with you everywhere. You sit in a movie theater and a baby cries 3 rows back and you feel it in your chest. You are on a long flight and an infant 2 seats over won't stop screaming. and you feel the agitation rising, not because you are impatient or unkind, but because your nervous system has been waiting 2 million years for you to do something about that sound. And the fact that there is nothing you can do feels almost physically wrong. The cry is a signal designed to be answered. And your brain, ancient and precise, and more loyal to your ancestors than to your present comfort, refuses to let you pretend you did not hear it. You never chose to care. You were built that way, long before you were born, long before any of this was yours to decide. The next time you hear a baby cry in a grocery store and your focus breaks and something in you shifts, just know this. That is not an inconvenience. That is 2 million years of human cooperation working exactly as designed. That pull you feel, that small involuntary tug toward a stranger's child, is the same force that kept your ancestors alive long enough to become you. You were always going to hear it, you were never going to ignore it.